What is up, everybody? Welcome to an impromptu episode of the Screen Crusader podcast. This is your host, Tex-Mex Smorty, of course, and I am joined here by none other than JT himself. It's going to be a small panel today, but my brother JT's here with me, so we could just have a good time, have some good conversation, and catch up on the latest and greatest on anything in the geek entertainment world. How you doing, JT?
I'm doing well. It's been a great week. I started journaling, so express my thoughts. I'm trying to journal at least every morning so I can go to work kind of refresh, have my mind clear. But other than that, it's been great. We have a lot to talk about. Again, this is an impromptu, and so whatever that we can talk about it in the next hour or two, hour or whatever, it'd be great. But let's get started. I can't wait to talk about stuff.
Yeah, same here. I really was hoping to be able to do an episode, even the impromptu episode with just you, if possible, on Monday, but unfortunately, life is kind of hectic at the moment, so there had a lot of stuff to do. Unfortunately, couldn't do that Monday, but here we are. Here we are. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. I mean, let me see. What did I have on the bulletin board? Again, this is I know you wanted to have some topics you wanted to add onto here, JT, that you actually I haven't even heard, so this is going to be impromptu or impromptu. There you go. I'm all tripping all over
Yeah,
my words.
actually, to start off with, I am going to say something that's on the board. I currently watched the first episode of Secret Invasion. I believe it takes place and after the blip, and it's kind of entertaining. Of course, as everybody knows who are listening, who are big Marvel fans, Samuel Jackson, of course, is Nick Fury. He has been Nick Fury forever, ever since 2009 with Iron Man, and so he's been around a decade or more. And in this show, again, like we actually see him at the end of Infinity War when he got blipped, and then we find out later on he's in outer space. And so this show kind of takes it back to Earth, like grounded Marvel stuff, where like it's more of like the Winter Soldier vibes type atmosphere. And the first episode really does that. I wouldn't give any spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but it's a lot of action. It's much more grounded base combat, hand to hand combat. Like in the trailers that said scrolls are invaded Earth for some odd reason, and Nick Fury has to decide like how should we approach them and everything. And so the episode to me, I know that Mr. Loyman in the group chat was saying that it's the best pilot since behind Loki. I mean, since Loki, I would kind of agree to that department. Again, like I feel like this show is for like big Marvel fans who know like what happened before the events of Secret Invasion. Because if you just go in there blind, you realize why is Nick Fury old? So you have to remember a lot of the crap that happened prior to this. I think that's one of the reasons why I think Marvel is really hard to understand, so to speak, because back in phase one, two, and three, it was simple, right? It was more like watch a lot of the movies, it all connected. Now phase four and five, it's so much more intricate with TV shows and just like multiverse movies like No Way Home, where you have to remember everything that's been going on within the MCU. As that. So, Tex Rex Morty, have you seen Secret Invasion, or have you
Uh,
heard some of the
I'm actually glad that you
reviews
were.
of the first episode?
No, I haven't. I'm actually glad you were getting down into like the nitty gritty of it, of course, without spoilers. Um, because I haven't gotten a chance to. I literally, like I said, life's been kind of hectic. I've been working really long hours at work, getting a bunch of stuff done. So I literally just got home, basically changed clothes and literally grabbed the bite like a slice of pizza as I was setting up this this stream. So I was
Mm.
scheduling it while with one hand and eating with the other hand. But I'm glad that it sounds like, because I know the type of stuff you like, so I know kind of what to gauge when it comes to Mr. Oyman, like you
Mm.
mentioned earlier. With him, I don't. It's a crapshoot in my book. He'll say I'll love something and then I'll watch it and be like, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
with you, I kind of know what to expect now. Um, because the reason I had it on here as Secret Invasion, another Marvel dud, was because this was going to be prior before it comes out. Reviews weren't too hot. You weren't really seeing a lot of, let's say, marketing for it. So it almost seemed like Disney was trying to get people to forget about this thing. And so I was like, what's going on over here? Are they no, they don't have something that's too hot, or what was the case in that aspect?
Mm.
Um, so now that's kind of two for two, saying that it is pretty solid. Although Mr. Oyman's thing of it's the best pilot since Loki is not saying much in my book, because I mean I can't think of a other than Moon Knight. Did that come out after Loki or before?
I think they came out after Loki.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that is a pretty decent bar. Because if I had to say, all the Disney Plus shows have not been the strongest, even coming out of the gate. But
Yeah.
Moon Knight was pretty good. So if he was taking in consideration that, um, that kind of does get me hopeful. I know I'm gonna be watching it as soon as we get off the air here. Hopefully, I have time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I said, I was just a little worried because all I saw was mid reviews, not a lot of talk about it, and the only talk I saw today about it, other than you and Mr. Oyman, was that they, what's it called, were catching some heat because they used AI or something like that to, hold on, let me bring up an article. Yeah, so it looks like artists are kind of angry because they rendered the opening sequence with some AI rendered stuff. So when I'm like, okay, what? In my opinion, that's no biggie. I know some people are very anti AI and such like that, and I could see
Yeah.
why, especially artists. But in this situation, they're acting like it's the end of the world. Like, oh, they use this right here, that's the end of it. No more artists are ever going to be hired. And I just feel like they're being very dramatic about it, over dramatic, because they're still going to be just like practical effects and such like that. There's still prosthetics being made for movies. There's still CG
Yeah.
did take a good chunk of the market, but it's slowly coming back. Actually, you're seeing big
Mm.
projects like The Witcher, The Last of Us, Stranger Things. All these bringing the Green Knight, bringing back practical effects and makeup
Thanks.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that's why I feel like these artists are a little bit too trigger happy with their out
Mm.
well, quote unquote outrage about the use of AI.
Yeah.
But that's what worried me, that the only thing that came out of it that I've seen going around is not, oh, it's a great show. I just saw people bashing the opening sequence because of that. So I'm like, oh, I don't know if it's being overshadowed or if it was just a slightly lackluster pilot, but it seems like it's a pretty solid one, you said, right?
Yeah, it is. And like this pilot episode really sets up what the future holds for the show. And I hopefully, with the amount of Secret Invasion has going forward, hopefully that movies will be similar to this in terms of not a lot of CGI heavy, is more practical effects in the show, and great storytelling. I think that's what Marvel missed, especially in Phase Four, especially with the big movies. I kind of get it that people was like, oh, Wakanda forever. Oh, all these other big like yes, but at the same time, Marvel fans love storytelling, and I feel like a lot of the big budget movies, especially in Phase Four, kind of missed it. It was all about remembrance and remembering the past and embracing the future, but not enough with the present. So I feel like this show really sets the groundwork of character development. It was great cinematography, especially some of the shots in this episode. And Nick Fury, as somebody who's been through hell, has really taken a toll of him physically and also mentally when it comes to dealing with the Skrull invasion. So if you have not seen the pilot episode of Secret Invasion, only 55 minutes. There is no after credit scene, uh, but it's great, great groundwork for what the future holds,
Wait, how
especially for
long?
this show
How
and
long did
maybe
you say?
beyond. So
How long did you say it takes roughly about?
55 minutes. I mean,
Okay.
after, with credits around like 45 ish, 47 minutes, give or
That's a
take.
pretty decent length right there actually. Not too long,
Yeah.
not too short. But yeah, like you said, I am kind of really looking forward to this one because the production value, at least in the trailer, did look good, and the fact that, like you said, it's this more grounded espionage. Would you
Mhm.
say it's like very character driven type of deal over
Yes,
spectacle?
I agree. It's character driven, which I missed at Marvel at times. I think that's what Marvel kind of differentiates from DC. DC had the more of the Blair type thing, not enough character development, as you would say, but especially doing phase one and three, Marvel had those character development films like Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America to Winter Soldier, Spider Man Homecoming, the first Iron Man, like especially like Thor, like the first Thor, even though that Thor was kind of bogus to some degree, it still elevated Thor to a place where he was still learning about his powers. He was like infant Thor, back in the day. And so but this is where Marvel does it perfectly as to where character development matters, and Nick Fury is the center point of the show, and it really helps in everything. Hmm. 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 Yeah, they are. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. But also, in addition to that variety, the MCU formula is kind of the same within all those three movies. Beginning, middle, then the epic battle scene with the villain. DC, on the other hand, though, had variety in terms of storytelling more point. With the movies like Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman 1984. Each one had its own different story and how the character was perceived. Meanwhile, with Marvel, again, like you pointed out, it was variety, but at the same time, the MCU formula is still kind of there, so to speak. And so, that's kind of what differentiates between Marvel and DC, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They're both going for different things, and well,
Yeah,
hopefully DC figures out what it's gonna be doing. Cause
yeah.
man, we'll get into it a little bit later down the episode. I know you haven't seen the Flash, so I'll keep like comments, of course, spoiler free. But there was some definitely. It, I'll wait till to talk about it later. So
Okay.
we did have, of course, I brought it up earlier by accident. The Netflix announced during their Tudum event. We got a few little things here and there. Um, Extraction 3. I haven't seen the second one, but apparently they're expecting it to be a big enough hit
Oh,
to where they're like screw it, greenlight another one. Um,
okay.
have you watched even the first one
I have
or
seen the first one, and it's really good.
yeah,
Uh, Again, not a lot of Netflix films are well received, especially with Red Notice with Ryan Reynolds, The Rock, and also Gal Gadot. But Extraction was one of those movies where I mean, it's a popcorn flick. It's really good action sequences. Chris Hemsworth does a great job, so I enjoyed it. I know that's but the sequel comes out is out now on Netflix, and then they said, okay, Chris Hemsworth is a moneymaker, so let's do it. The third one, hopefully, to be the last one. But speaking of the Netflix Tadoma event, Texas Money, what do you think of Netflix doing a lot of anime series in order to combat Disney Plus sort of thing? Because I know that in the event, Netflix is doing a live action of One Piece. They're also doing a live action version of Avatar as a series. So, so do you think this is a great idea for Netflix to kind of delve into the manga aspect of its kind of repertoire, so to speak, so it can kind of bring in more like subscribers than losing a lot of people?
well, I know that they have been in the past actually like really hitting the what is it, the video game and manga audiences
Mhm.
by having anime that's at least in this part of the world exclusive to them. Granted, it is an anime
Yeah.
that was made by a third party company and they just bought the rights to, I guess, distribute it would be the term. But when it comes to the live action, I just I feel like it I get what they're doing, like you said, they're trying to reach out and get a new market, but
Mhm.
certain things don't translate very well outside of the original medium, and anime tends to be one of them. I know we've covered it a little bit in a previous episode where we're hoping anime eventually gets the comic book and video game treatments where we're starting to see an improvement on those type of projects. Obviously, for every Guardians Volume 3 or Across the Spider Verse, you're going to get a Craven the Hunter, which we will be talking about a little later. But like this
Yeah.
One Piece one, it looks a little better quality wise, I suppose, than some of their previous endeavors. But I mean, we've seen it in the past in movies like, let's say, Ghost in the Shell or the Full Metal Alchemist movie that was on Netflix, or even recently the Cowboy Bebop. Oh man, that thing! Where's my soundboard? That thing was horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
Slucious, he loves Cowboy Bebop, and he just saw like I think half an episode, and
What
he
the
was
fuck, y'all? God
that was his
damn! God
reaction.
damn!
He is so
Yeah.
in the end, if they could do it right, that'd be great. This One Piece one, I have a feeling it's probably gonna be another Cowboy Bebop where it looks like if you take a screenshot, the costumes are right, the the like overall look is right, but the how they translate it ends up being weird, and I just hope it doesn't do more
Mhm.
damage to them than good, because then you're gonna
Yeah.
again if you have a horrible Cowboy Bebop level uh, atrocity at your hands. You already had Full Metal Alchemist, which I'm a big fan of that series, and I saw the first movie, and apparently I think they did make the second part, but I didn't even bother with it because it was pretty dog shit in my opinion. it was rough. Um, Even though it, like Alphonse, he looked perfect. Some of the stuff looked great, but it just they failed to capture the heart. Cowboy Bebop was the same. So if they keep on this route of these like half-assed, just make them look right and don't worry about like the screenplay and such like that, in the end,
Mhm.
people will associate with, oh, Netflix is the home of these poorly done anime things, and I think that's the last
Yeah.
thing they want to do. As far as the
Yeah.
Avatar one, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel like there's one series that Netflix did perfectly was Arcane. It's based off the video game, I believe, and that was awesome. Like seeing it for the first time a couple years ago on Netflix was amazing. Um, stylistic wise, it was fantastic. A lot of character development within that show, and the visuals were stunning. And hopefully Netflix will make a second season of it. But I think if they want to do like more anime style, like maybe live action, maybe that's even though Arcane is more of a CG heavy series, maybe they can take some of that elements and hopefully bring it into live action, so to speak. So
Yeah, yeah. All right. And when it came to the Last Airbender,
mhm,
um, the costumes they look pretty much like I mentioned earlier, spot on.
mhm.
The one thing I can't shake though is I'm gonna be kind of like what's the term? I'm gonna try to go in with an open mind, but we do have this this atrocity that M Night Shyamalan has brought to us before. So I'm not gonna hold my breath and expect a great adaptation because maybe, like I said, some things just don't translate to live action. Hopefully, I'm wrong because The Last Airbender is one of my favorite animated series of all time. I thought it had a wonderful story, wonderful characters that kind of almost grow with you type of deal. Like as the audience got older, the show itself matured from like a book one was a little bit in the beginning, a little bit more kiddie, and then by the end of it, it definitely was a very well thought out story and
Yeah,
characters, and you could tell they were actually putting more effort into it because they wanted to give something to an audience that they know has been there for a while. So this show is I hold near and dear to me, and I just like I said, I'm scared because of the last time they tried doing a live action adaptation of that. It was not good at all. It was
Bullshit.
but we could hope that they learned their lessons, and hopefully the people at Netflix decide they want to watch the movie over and over again so they could learn what not to do and
yeah.
go from there. I mean, what like you're looking forward to it, or are you also on a similar camp where you're a little bit worried based on previous works?
I'm a little bit worried because for one, Avatar is considered one of the best animated series of all time. The reason why, for me, is because Zuko's character is so well developed between book one to four. I couldn't believe the first time I saw Avatar, I finally understood why it was getting a lot of hype when I was in school because I missed that phase of like watching the Avatar Last Airbender constantly on TV. So I was like, oh yeah, this is just so. But as an adult, you watch it and you see a lot of themes that kind of relates to you. You see a lot of character development. The fight scenes are amazing, especially with the addition of the Legend of Korra. It gives them more of a weight of what Aang and the crew is trying to accomplish, in Avatar: Last Airbender, the show. So hopefully Netflix does its part in actually watching the show, getting some inspiration of the show, incorporated within this live action. But Netflix track record indicates that pull away from the source material. So the costumes looks great. Again, they have a year, so maybe it comes out in the fall or spring, summer, fall of next year. So they do have time to kind of develop a series as to where it will be talked about heavily on Twitter, on social media, on Instagram, especially on TikTok. But as of right now, it's up in the air. So we'll see.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Um, so let's see what else was announced at the Tudum thing. So let's bring up. It looks like they just announced a cast of Squid Games 2, which I guess they just felt like fluffing up the place and been like, oh look, we have a cast, but that
Yeah.
project is obviously a little ways out since they didn't have anything particular to say. But they did have the most, like, I guess they're like, oh, but we do have something for November. They have that new show, which is a little bit tone deaf. It's like the whole premise of the show was basically this like reality game show where people are doing all these things and getting killed for money is bad. Like, and then they're like, you know what? Let's make a show based on that show. So I don't know where their head was in that. Um, all this other stuff. Me personally, I don't care for something called Elite or Bridgerton, Emily in Paris. Not my cup of tea type of a deal. Let's go for
Yeah, me neither.
more geeky stuff. There's season 6 of Cobra Kai was on hiatus because of the writer's strike. I honestly thought they already aired their 6th season or they already ended, but I guess not. I, I have you been watching that show by any chance?
I have not, no.
Okay. Well, I mean, it started off so great. The first couple of seasons were actually really good.
Yeah.
Like it was something that I actually enjoyed binge watching, and I was like, "Oh, maybe this is cool." I heard it's very good. I remember it showed up as a YouTube Red when it was still YouTube Red and not Premium, and
Mhm.
I was a member back then, so I saw on my scroll on my feed, but I never actually watched it. And once it popped up on Netflix and people started saying it was good, I decided to give it a shot. Like I said, seasons 1 to 2 were great. Season 3, it was all right. I mean, where's my guy?
I mean, it's all right. Like,
And it was starting to get a little long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Then season 4 was when it really was obviously long in the tooth. I feel like they just started retreading the same like beats every season from seasons the end of season 2 to like 3 and 4. They just started feeling a little samey, so I gave up and couldn't finish the show, unfortunately. But I would recommend the first 2 seasons.
Okay.
Apparently Archie is getting some Indian adaptation, I guess. I mean, because Riverdale was not enough. So I wonder if they'll do a better job than the CW did with whatever the hell Riverdale was.
I don't know. I watched the first couple of seasons, I believe, and then I just stopped because I was like, this is getting ridiculous.
Oh yeah, no. My younger sister said she watches it just because of how bad and like everywhere like balls to the wall, I guess, type of deal is where they literally don't know what they're doing. She says that they'll go and do a story arc that ends in like a big quote unquote shocker mid season. And then they'll come back from the mid season and be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we just gave up on that plot, and we're never gonna close that plot. We're just moving on to something else." Eventually, there was like a Scarlet Witch type lady with superpowers, and Sabrina the Witch also got involved somehow, and then they started like warping reality or some weird, I don't know. She was trying to explain it to me and she was having such a hard time trying to make it make sense, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why you watch it. And she's like, well, I just watch it just cuz of how like stupid it is, and I just want to see where they end up next. So I guess they found an audience with making people as confused as possible.
Hey, so speaking of something, I want to talk to you since you are a big movie guy like I am, and of course, Marvel has delayed so many movies because of the writer's strike. Like, what is what is your thought process of how the writer's strike may affect movies going forward? Because for us Marvel fans, it delayed a lot of movies, like Secret Wars delayed a year to 2027. So, and plus, like with Deadpool and like all these TV shows haven't been paused because of the writer's strike. Like, what do you think this will affect going forward? Because again, like on the next topic, we're going to talk about the box office and how it's not booming as it was pre-pandemic. Like what is your thought process of how would this affect the entertainment world moving forward with this writer strike that's happening right now?
I honestly am surprised, and I probably shouldn't be, that I'm surprised that it is affecting it a lot more than it would initially thought it would. You're looking at
Mhm.
stuff like you said, Secret Wars. I thought they would kind of get it resolved or be kind of close to resolving it by now. So I thought, oh hey, a couple months, what's that gonna do? Maybe a
Yeah.
like 3 month delay for something, but it makes sense that they will always want to try to keep those Avengers movies in the May timeframe. But
Hmm.
well, actually no, because Secret Wars was going to be a little bit later if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
Oh no, because they did move it, so this is a second delay. But yeah, like I was saying, it definitely surprised me that a lot of these got pushed by like either a year or a lot longer than I thought it would. So it makes me wonder if it keeps going at this rate. Just a couple months of strike delayed something for a year, and what if it keeps going for 2 to 3 times that amount? Are they just gonna keep delaying by year or 6 months, and then before you know it, Secret Wars you're looking at 2035 or something? But obviously that's an exaggeration on my point, but
Hmm. Yeah.
it does surprise me. It shouldn't in the way, because once you mention it and once you start thinking about it, these are like very well-oiled machine type of deal. They pump them out at
Hmm.
what seems to us at a slow rate, but when you think about it, the process of all they have to do, they're not just putting one or two movies out a year, or yeah, they're putting TV shows, movies. So if one of them kind of scoots back a little, you can't, half of the time you can't release this one, or this one will also get pushed back. So in
Yeah.
actuality, being delayed or being on pause for even a few months, you could tell that, or it does make sense that it would
Hmm.
completely set you back a lot based on how much work and time and stuff behind the scenes
Yeah.
these type of movies require. On top of that, um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, second part to this, I think they're also kind of potentially using it as a little bit of an excuse to delay their stuff, because we have been seeing the signs that Marvel is kind of, they might not be showing it, but they are definitely, it seems to be in a bit of a panic mode, because you had like,
Hmm.
they're utterly quiet in the Namor situation and the Jonathan Majors
Hmm.
situation. They were very
Yes, I did
quiet
see
when it
that.
came to delaying stuff like Secret Wars. It no longer came out in the spring. It started in the summer, obviously. You do get the stealth delay of Loki and some of these other shows. What's the other show that's coming out like a month after Loki? There was
Um,
it was an Agatha. I forgot what other show. Echo.
I for- yeah, Echo. Yeah,
Yeah,
Echo.
Echo. They're dropping all the, like, that was supposed to be, I think, also around this time in of this year, and now it's
Hmm.
at the end, a month after Loki, and they're releasing everything at once. So it looks like they're definitely doing a restructure back there, and they are trying to postpone kind of stuff because the numbers aren't obviously what they want it to be, and they're just utterly quiet, like not utterly, eerily quiet about stuff that they should normally are very open forward with their audience. Like, we would always know Marvel stuff way in advance. We would get details. They weren't known for delaying, and if they did delay something, they kind of let you know ahead of time, even if it wasn't a huge Avengers level movie, which they've only been addressing the really big movies that are getting delayed. They haven't really been addressing the smaller projects. They just kind of are like, oh, here's a release date. And then you're like, wait, that's not the release window you gave me. And they just pretend that it was. On top of that, I mean, you have them. News came out today that they're not even going to show up to Hall H at Comic Con. So
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I mean, I want to hear your thoughts of it, but I'm pretty sure this is a clear sign that maybe Marvel isn't as confident as they used to be and as they want us to think they are. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you're saying. Again, like with the backlash of Phase 4, especially in the beginning of Phase 5, I feel like Marvel is taking a step back and looking at what do we do wrong? What do we do wrong? And especially with the casting choices, we haven't heard anything from Fantastic Four. We haven't heard anything about what's going to happen with Jonathan Majors, especially as Kang, especially with the lackluster box office performance that was Ant-Man Quantumania. And again, like I kind of feel like Marvel is I don't know what to expect from them anymore. Because back in the day, Marvel used to be the juggernaut in terms of like box office after hit, a lot of anticipation for the movies to come. And now I feel like they gotten a big head, so to speak, and they're not doing what we thought they're supposed to do. I know that in the background of the scenes, they're planning at least 25 different projects, like in undercover and everything. But at the same time, like this is not the Marvel that we used to know. And I know that newer fans who are recently joining Marvel, will have to go back and kind of follow everything from '09, from '08 with Iron Man and so on and so forth. But I kind of feel like ever since James Gunn left Marvel, and especially with the death of Stan Lee, he was, a kind of critical cog in the Marvel machine in terms of like where stuff goes and everything, a lot of making appearances in all these movies and everything. I feel like Marvel lost its touch with society, reality, and also with his fans because his time jump, especially in the end game. Because right now it's like, it's like a huge gap between the movies, in TV shows and in here in real life. And so Marvel's got to get something straight about that because the time jump in Endgame really killed them, in my opinion, because fans were trying to figure out, okay, when does this show take place? Was it before the blip? After the blip? Was it in between the blip, so to speak? And so they dug themselves a hole, and this writer strike is not helping them as well as they thought there will be, and there will be some consequences to this because one, a lot of people don't go see Marvel movies opening weekend if it's especially with the Marvels coming out in November. I heard that's not good. Number two is the casting choices. People might not like it. The directors, people might like the director associated with certain Marvel projects, and they might lose fans because of it. So, Marvel just got to be careful. Because as of right now, it doesn't look good. It has a big black eye on the studio. And so they have to walk on eggshells kind of from now on until they kind of get their shit together, which I doubt will happen down the road, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think they will eventually. It's just they like you said they had the whole blip situation where they weren't very clear on that in certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there normally would be communication, and then they started releasing like prequels and all this and all that, movies that take place half here, half that, and you just start wondering like, okay, where does this take place? It used to be, like you said, sequential order, so that didn't help them. COVID didn't help them, and then they just started slacking, and now but like I said, they're being super quiet, and they're obviously pushing back stuff. They're probably going to start cutting off stuff, and it's something that they probably should have looked at to begin with in terms of like QC type of stuff, because you want quality over quantity, and they decided they got too ahead of themselves, and they thought, hey, we could just put out anything and any character and they will just stick. But obviously you have some examples that show that that's not the case, that people are they use the term superhero fatigue, and I know that it's not a thing because, I mean, just look at the success of Guardians Volume 3 and Across the Spider-Verse. You see that, and you notice that it's not so much superhero fatigue. It's just people are being more aware of mediocre superhero movies, and they need to learn that we're not tired of these movies, because you could tell so many different stories based on all these characters and all that. You just have to have something worth telling. And I think they based on the previous couple years, their box office results, like I said, you always have to vote with your wallet with these type of companies, whether it's video games or movie. It's a consumer product. We don't like something, we say we're not paying for this, we're not watching this, and that's how the boat gets turned around real quick. And we're seeing it as we speak with them skipping Hall H, because I'm pretty sure they were probably originally going to be like, hey, we're going to announce 10 new shows and maybe one surprise movie, but you see that they decided to skip, and they're probably just gonna have a little bit of a presence and just maybe talk about other stuff in on like the show floors and such like that in regards to their shows that they currently have planned, but they're definitely not going all out like they normally do. So that just makes me wonder if they're just gonna give the opportunity to DC to kind of start getting the drop on them in terms of getting hype up at Comic-Con, because I mean, we have seen that their universe right now is not doing so good, so they're also reevaluating everything, and we know change is coming based on the whole thing with James Gunn and Peter Safran. You got them kind of already announced some of their first slate, and they're gearing up to kind of reboot this. They've been very on the fence, but it now looks like they're just ready to get over with the Snyderverse and move on to the next thing, because they're already. I was gonna bring up the Brave and Bold Andy Muschietti, but we'll save that for a second. Because they, like I was mentioning, in terms of they're getting ready to get the ball rolling with that. You see it in this article that I'm bringing up right here that came out just a few hours ago. Blue Beetle, the director's already out there being like, "Oh no, we're part of the Gunn universe." So you see they changed their tune from before. Oh no, we don't know where the Flash and Aquaman are gonna be. Yeah, it doesn't tend to look good and reflect well on your franchises like Shazam or The Flash, when people aren't going to show up to something they know is going to have an unanswered, like open-ended endings to them, because there was going to be something planned for them, but now you're over here saying that's not going to be a thing, and people obviously are going to lose interest. So now they're going damage control and going out there and making the director say that this is 100% going to be in the Gunn universe. Obviously, they're probably going to have had already some reshoots to kind of fill in those gaps. I always thought Blue Beetle was probably going to be a little bit self-contained and just have a small amount of references, but I guess they're going to add references to kind of mix in with Gunn's universe, since there is a fresh slate right there. But speaking of the Flash, I want to get you wanted to get into the box office. Because, man, oh man,
Yes, I do.
this past weekend was rough for some of these movies. I mean, you had um, Pixar's Elemental just do horrible. I mean, it had a huge $200 million budget, and it made what, like 29 million, I believe, which is,
Yeah.
yeah, 29.6 million in a 3 day weekend, which is around the same thing that Toy Story had. But I mean, that's not adjusted to inflation, and that came out in 1995. I think it was
Yeah.
1995, right? The year I was born.
95.
Yeah. So hell, it's almost 30 years old, and for your movie to be making as much as a movie from 30 years ago without adjusted inflation, I mean, it definitely is something that is very concerning for Pixar. I wonder how that's going to affect them because they already laid off some people due to their previous movie, like Lightyear, underperforming. And I mean, you had what, Turning Red going straight to Disney Plus, so they're they're really testing Pixar, and we know how the House of Mouse kind of rolls. If something's not
Mm-hmm.
making them money, then they're just
Money,
they're just gonna
money,
cut it
money.
off, and that would be a shame. Granted, I personally, I've said it before, I haven't been just connecting with Pixar's latest movies, but even then, they're still, I still like them. I still think they're fun. They're cute. They're So it would be a shame to see failures like this potentially put them in danger. Of course, we had the Flash. Just, oh man, that's a flop, man, for a big budget movie relying on nostalgia with Keaton and all that coming back. Um, this huge budget, and it seeing like their first estimate was 120 to 140, which would have put it near like what Guardians Volumes 3 opened. But then after seeing like the slow pre-order box office type thing, they readjusted their estimates to be 70 million, which was more modest, but the Flash wasn't even able to reach that. It ended its 3 day run with $55.7 million at the box office, and even with the fourth day added to it, it still didn't even break that original prediction of 70 million for its first 3 days. So, what's your take on? Like I said, you wanted to get into the box office stuff, so I'll
Yeah.
let you pass the mic on to you.
Yeah. So for movie lovers out there, I'm disappointed in you guys. Not because I get about movies and not we was talking about the DC stuff, but just going to the movies is a privilege. A lot of people do not have the privilege to go to the movies. I get it that there's a lot of movies that have open-ended questions like The Flash and it's kind of bombed and everything, but just being part of the movie experience matters. For example, The Flash. I'm talking to DC fans right now. I am a DC fan. I don't care if the DC is being rebooted. I don't care that Ezra Miller is a piece of crap or whatever. Who has personal misconduct stuff. Good job as a moviegoer fan, as a consumer, is to watch movies you appreciate, you want to see live on the big screen. Flashpoint has an animated movie, but we have not seen one on a live action screen. I know that there's some issues, especially with the Snyderverse and everything, but a movie is a movie. And I'm kind of disappointed that a lot of DC fans talk the talk, but do not walk the walk, especially with the Snyderverse.
Oh, I gotta
That's what
hold on,
happened with Shazam,
hold on
Fury of the Gods.
before you continue. I got a little picture I'm put up there. All right, go back to what you were saying.
So anyway, I'm just saying that you guys have to support the Flash. The Flash wasn't James Gunn idea. The Flash was the previous regime idea, and I get it. I really do, but a movie is a movie. You have to go to the movies if you want to see a blockbuster. Elemental is another one. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I really do. I heard that the storytelling is pretty good, the direction and everything. But the thing about Elemental is that Disney Pixar put their movies on Disney Plus, which is a problem in my eyes. So was good. So was fantastic. I enjoyed it. Turning Red was a kind of coming of age film in the American Chinese community, which is fine, but they put on Disney Plus. And this was like a year or two after COVID. And Disney thought, okay, if we can put our movies on Disney Plus, it'd be really good. But then when Lightyear came about, it was poorly marketing. It was bad. I mean, it wasn't bad, but the marketing wasn't as distinguished as it used to be in terms of marketing movies and so on and so forth. That underperformed in the box office because people are waiting for movies to go see on Disney Plus. And so as fans, we have a tendency to wait for things to go on streaming. That's why I give credit to I think it was Universal, or maybe it was Paramount, for like the Evil Dead Rise, I believe, because that movie is about to go straight to Max, I believe, straight to Max. But with the positive word of mouth and everything about the movie, they put it in theaters and it made a pretty penny because like me and Texas Morty and the whole gang saw it and it was fantastic. I enjoyed it. A couple of nights ago, I saw the Evil Dead from 2013, and that was pretty good as well. And so I think some movies we have to watch in theaters to support A, the theater community, and B, these studios, because if a lot of these movies flops, we won't have another great blockbuster. And also, studios, please space out your movies for the summer. I get it. It's the
Yeah,
summer,
definitely.
but still, like you cannot put Beyond the Spider Verse, the Flash movie, an Elemental, big Pixar movie, all in three sep back to back weekends. You can't do that. A, that will cost you a lot of money because people are jockeying to see which movie you want to see. And B is that you are losing customers. If you have a family of four, right? And tickets are normally like $20. And if people decides to split, that's like, that's $80. 40 go to one movie, 40 go to another, and then popcorn and drink. Like that's kind of a call for. And so, but I'm kind of glad that we kind of get a break from the superhero movie fatigue, so to speak, with some raunchy comedies that's coming out, like Joyride, like early July. The Barbie movie comes out in mid July. Oppenheimer and No Hard Feelings star and Jennifer Lawrence coming out this weekend. It kind of breaks up kind of the box office, which more of a comedy centric, like funny movies, so the more like nostalgic, heavy movies. And so, but as for moviegoers like me and Texas and Morty, we have to support movie theaters now. We have to. No matter what movie we have to go see, we have to go out and watch the movies. Streaming will always be there till the end of time. That's what I believe. Movie theaters, there will become a point in time where movie theaters will be non-existent at this point because of how much money it takes to run a movie theater, how much money to pay its employees, how much money the studios have the rights to give those films to those studios in order to see it on the big screen. So I encourage you, go see some of these movies this weekend, this summer. Go see some of the non-blockbuster movies this weekend or this summer because every movie matters in the summer. All year long, every movie matters. It doesn't matter how big, how medium, or how large the movie is. Every movie costs money. Every movie director put their hearts and soul into the craft. And a lot of people put their jobs on the line for those movies. Because if a movie fails, And that's maybe another person's job being fired or being let go because we didn't support the movies that are associated on the big screen. And so um I love movies. I really do. I love box office. I really do. I used to do newspaper clippings about the box office numbers each and every week because I was fascinated to see how much money some of these movies made, little or small. So my advice: try to go see a movie at least once a month. Please, at least go see a movie once a month because movie theaters need it because pre-COVID it was all great, fun, loving. Post-COVID, they're struggling. And so we need to kind of replenish some of the monies that we have and help them out in that regard. And so go out, see some movies this year, please, because we need it. Gives us a break from all the tension in the world today. And streaming will be there for a long time, but movie theaters might not be here as long as we expect it to be because if nobody shows up to watch movies, then what's the point of having 100-seat auditorium with popcorn, candy, drinks, alcohol, soda, nachos, whatever. So gotta think about that when you at least go to the movie theaters. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, you actually reminded me of a topic that I know the other rest of the panel members might not, but you mentioned streaming, and hopefully, I'm gonna say I hope you're wrong and movie theaters don't go away because yeah, it just they bring a different feel. Even if it's the same movie, you watch it at home, you watch it in the theater, you just get a different feel in the theater. Even just walking into the showroom, into the auditorium, you get this sense of like other people are here to watch the same thing because they have a similar interest, they have a similar hype level, let's say, to see this movie. They made it all the way out here. They paid their ticket. They paid their overpriced concessions to watch this. So you already feel very welcome there. Versus at home, it just feels a lot less special, let's say. But I just saw an article recently that streaming, I've been saying this since the beginning, and I feel like all those companies got too trigger happy and were like, haha, I'm going to have my own content and this and that. And for one of the few times Sony played it safe and where they're like, we got the IP, but we're not launching our own streaming platform, is the fact that I saw that there's talks of, what was it, HBO to release some original content and sell it to Netflix. So you see that paired with other articles claiming that these streaming platforms are not just only adding ads, but they're wanting to merge together to combine their IP or sell it out to another company so that they could bundle it together because they're losing market. They're like you mentioned earlier with the too many movies at the same time. You have too many streaming platforms. So what streaming platforms are realizing is that, hey, if we band together, let's say, stupid scenario, but let's say like Disney Plus and Netflix content, if they band together, they both get that customer versus if they split each other. And because Netflix used to have Disney stuff, so now Disney took their stuff, but not everyone left Netflix to go over to Disney, so now Disney lost potential customers. And it looks like the other article was stating that we're more or less just seeing more companies willing to do that, and if that whole HBO and Warner Brothers or HBO and Netflix thing is true, then it is true. We're just reverting back to basically cable, where you could get a premium package that has your HBO and your Netflix, or you could get the Premium Plus, which also includes content from Disney, and you're seeing even internet companies bundle those together as part of like you pay $10 a month and get HBO and like Showtime or something like that. So we are reverting back to cable stuff. So I don't know how. I think they overshot and overestimated how successful and how um, accepting people were going to be of the streaming platform. And now companies are learning the hard way and having to readjust. I mean, you mentioned it earlier with Disney Plus. They don't know how to get that message out that not all Pixar movies are going to be at Disney Plus, or they're trying to figure out how much time they should wait. I mean, look at some of the ones that came out, let's say MCU movies. They were coming out within like a month and a half to from when they released in theaters to Disney Plus, and now you have Ant-Man that just went on there not too long ago, and the movie came out in what, February? So you're seeing the normal 3 month gap. So they were like, we're coming out on Blu-ray or theater first, then Blu-ray, and then Disney Plus. Whereas before you were getting out in theaters and then like a month later already in Disney Plus. So there's definitely a lot that the streaming platform has to grow through, and whether or not it survives, or if they just end up going back to like a cable structure and we only have one or two providers, we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. The second thing that you mentioned that I wanted to do is, it's similar to the graphic that I have on the board, and it's I would say Snyder fans, not so much DC fans. The Snyder fans are all hostile and like very loud on the internet, and then the movies come out, and then you're like, where the hell is everyone? And
yes.
I mean, The Flash right now, if you were to go into an auditorium, that's all you would hear, crickets.
Yep.
And what gets me more about the Snyder fans is they're already blaming everyone but Zack Snyder. They're blaming James Gunn. They're like, well, part of it is the fact, like we mentioned, that a decent amount of the hype was killed because they announced a reboot before they even got these movies out of the way, which what people don't understand is these movies usually are announced way ahead of time. So if they didn't announce anything after Aquaman 2, people would start asking a lot of questions like, why weren't they at Comic-Con? So obviously you cannot wait the same way, like, oh yeah, surprise, reboot. But they're already blaming Zack Snyder, and I just...
What a joke.
They're just a joke to me, those Snyder fans, because they're crying that, oh, you say he didn't have anything to do with The Flash, and The Flash is part of his universe type of deal. But no, James Gunn came in when this movie was like 90% complete. And yeah, so what if he fucking changed the post-credit scene or took Wonder Woman and Henry Cavill out? What I don't like is that they're like claiming that because he took those cameos out, it affected the movie, and he was in charge of the whole project, basically. And I'm like, no. So you're angry that he decided to he did have some say in what was going to be in the final product, but why would you want him to keep these stupid cameos of Wonder Woman and Henry Cavill when we know they're not coming back? It just makes absolutely no sense. You're just looking at these people like, where are your brains? Bruh. Like, did you really want him to keep those cameos in there, and then it leads to nowhere? That was my original like beef with the Zack Snyder Justice League movie. It's like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a million times better than what we got in the theater. I thought it was cool, but it bothered me that they gave us this cut of a movie that's going to be setting up something that we'll never, ever see the end of. And that's what I told Slucius and Mr. Oyman and Davell when they gave me a phone call after they watched it, and so we're like, oh, did you watch it yet? It's so cool, this and that. Aren't you excited? And I'm like, no, I'm not excited for the future because there is no future. Like, I had a feeling they were going to hit reboot anyways. But it just baffles me. It baffles me that they're so vocal, yet when it comes to like show up or shut up, it's always a shut up with the DC fans. Like, I give a lot of shit to Mr. Oyman for defending a lot of the crap that Marvel puts out. Um, and we're two sides of the same coin. I'm like the tail side where I'm like, okay, I do support Marvel, but I love some of these characters so much that I don't want to see them get just kind of like a mediocre attempt, so I don't defend them. I actually go very critical on them because of it, because it's some stuff that I really like. But Mr. Oyman seems to be a little bit more open, but at least I could give him the fact that he claims he loves Marvel. He's willing to show up even for the projects he truly isn't that excited about. And Marvel seems to at least have that dedicated fan base to where, yeah, it might not do the best at the box office, but at least some people showed up, unlike Flash. Because you know what? With the Flash box office coming out and everything like that, here's another graphic. DC Universe, game's over. From stupid ass Fast X. But it's just, it's baffling to me. That's why I want to just kind of get close to wrapping this episode up. Not right now, but in a bit, because we do only have, obviously, the, unless you could bring something else up, JT. I don't know if you wanted to bring anything else up, but I did want to close off the episode with kind of lightly going over the Flash and the future of the DC, because it looks like they might have were gonna have a half-assed reboot with, oh yeah, Henry Cavill's gone, but we still have, let's say, this character, Blue Beetle, or we still have Ezra Miller as a Flash because we're able to connect it through like a Flashpoint paradox type of, or Flashpoint storyline. We could connect it and have Ezra still be the Flash because he could jump around different universes. But I don't think that's going to be the case after the performance of this movie. What do you think?
I mean, based on what I've heard, again, I'm disappointed about what the Flash has performed because I am gonna watch the Flash hopefully this weekend, and we can talk about it more on Monday in depth about it. And I get it, I really do, but I'm excited for this new regime of James Gunn. I really am. Do I think that Henry Cavill was a good Superman? Yes. Do I think Gal Gadot was a good Wonder Woman? Yes. At the same time, I think that DC has been, again, to preface this statement with my soliloquy going on here. Warner Brothers did Zack Snyder's wrong. Okay. They did. Because when he was filming Justice League, he had some problems that happened in his home with the death of his daughter. And instead of Warner Brothers waiting for that to get situated and kind of enhance that kind of vision that we saw in the Snyder Cut, they hired Josh Whedon and the rest is history. And as you know, how shitty the DC is today. So I do blame Warner Brothers for this extractrophy that's been going on at DC. Also with the fans as well, because they're also part of it. Like we just talked about a couple minutes ago, how Snyder fans are not showing up because they have bad tantrums about crap and everything. But going forward is going to be a blessing because James Gunn is in charge and Peter Safran, who was an executive producer on majority of the projects of the old regime, know what they're doing. And I'm glad that Blue Beetle in particular is going to be part of the Guns rebooted universe because A, it's a character that we have not seen before on the big screen, and B, he is a critical member of the Young Justice. So maybe down the road, we might be able to see Young Justice live action. That'd be really cool. But it's either here or there. Um, Again, I think a couple podcast episodes ago, we talked about some of the new information about Gunn's universe, especially with Swamp Thing and Superman Legacy, which I've heard I think is casting Lois Lane and also Superman this weekend for Father's Day weekend. Plus,
Yeah, I heard about
Gunn
that.
also said that they're going to introduce the Authority, which I don't know who they are, but by the looks of it, they sound really cool. In this movie itself, there's going to be a lot of new faces, new blood within this movie, this whole Guns universe. To point out, that's all I'm going to say is this. DC fans, support this universe, please. I don't want to hear any shit about how these movies suck because I am tired of the bickering. I'm tired of the arguing of everything. I love movies. I love storytelling. I love character development. And I feel like this whole shit show of arguing on social media and not hearing from both sides of the aisle really pisses me off, especially on TikTok and about how people said, "Oh, The Flash is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made," and people's like, "Oh, you should really watch this," and all these cameos and everything. While other people say it's trash. Can we just agree to disagree? Like seriously, people, come on. We can be civilized people when it comes to Marvel and DC. I'm one of them. I am personally one of them. I am a Marvel fan and a DC fan. I talk shit on both of them because I love these two properties to death. I have all the Batman games, majority of them. I have Spider-Man and Spider-Man Morales. I have seen Daredevil when it was on Netflix. I've seen Luke Cage. I've seen all the MCU movies. I've seen majority of the DC movies. Like, I am a fan who loves both properties. And we have this podcast, Marvel Mondays, to talk about Marvel, also talk about some DC stuff, also talk about some other stuff associated with entertainment. We hear both sides of everybody and we agree to disagree. That's what healthy arguments are for. So I don't want to hear about how Blue Beetle sucks. I don't want to hear about how Superman Legacy wasn't up to expectation of Man of Steel. I don't want to hear how Swamp Thing is really whatever, down to earth. I just want people's honest opinions about stuff. And I feel like people sugarcoat it to make them feel good. I'm talking truth. The Batman was really good. I enjoyed it. Joker was fascinating. Quantumania was not bad. It was kind of bad. Volume 3 is considered one of the greatest MCU movies ever made because it tied in everything. With Walker's story and everything. And so, my last point, then I'll give it to Texas Morty, is that arguing about Marvel and DC is so non existent at this point. I just want to have real conversations about movies and about DC and Marvel and their paths. Will become a point in time where I hope that DC and Marvel will be at the same playing field to a point where we can actually have actual discussions. I think it will come sooner rather than later, especially with Gunn's universe sort of becoming that way, a more of a Marvel-esque where everything is connected. But as of right now, I'm tired of the bullshit that everybody's giving me, especially on social media. And so I just want to have healthy arguments about DC and Marvel, and we cannot have that. Don't talk to me at all. Texas Moore, do you have anything else to add? Because you kind of feel the same way, so to
Yeah,
speak.
no, yeah, I would agree. Because like I said, I do it with Marvel. Sometimes I do vote with my wallet. I do. I still give some things a chance. Like I gave She-Hulk a chance, but I will trash talk the shit out of that because I thought it was just disgusting. It was a terrible show.
Yeah.
Um, but I again I do this because I love these properties. I love these type of stuff. So when I talk mad shit about DC, it's because I know they're capable of something good. I love these
Mhm.
characters. I've read their comics. I growing up. I played their games growing up. So I know they have the right stuff. They have the access to these great characters that they could do such good things with. So when I was seeing stuff like And I'm glad I remained skeptical and I didn't fall into the hype. You mentioned it earlier. I saw stuff like The Flash is the greatest comic book movie you ever saw. Oh, Stephen King hates comic book movies, but he loved The Flash. Tom Cruise says it's the second coming of Jesus Christ, even though he's a Scientologist, but whatever. You get the analogy. It was... It sounded like they were paying off a bunch of people to say a bunch of good stuff. And while I'm going to go ahead and say it, it was not the worst thing I saw, but it was nowhere near the best comic book movie of all time. Hell, it wasn't even near the best comic book movie of this year. I mean, when you're coming hot of the heels from Volume 3 and Across the Spider-Verse, they should have been honest and just like been straight up like what to expect with this movie. Because I know with James Gunn, he had to say it. I mean, he's the new head of DC. What is he going to say? Oh, yeah,
it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
No, he's not going to go out and say that The Flash is not that great. He's going to say, whoa, now that I'm running things, go watch the DC movie. It's like a sponsorship type of deal. But when I watched this movie, I was let down. It was nowhere near like those other two that I mentioned, like not even close. There were times where you could tell there's actually, it's, how do I word this? This movie is bad in the sense it's frustrating. Like it's not a horrible film, it's not a good film. So it's somewhere in the middle where there's aspects of it that you could tell that it had the potential to have heart, to have a very good movie. You could tell they wanted to have a good movie, but then I don't know if it's Andy Muschietti, and I know his wife helps with like the script and such like that. I don't know if it was the director or just the writer or what. You had some very, very questionable choices that were made that really brought down this movie. Like, you would have this like start getting kind of attached to, like, let's say what's going on the screen. Like, you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel it, I'm starting to vibe with it, I'm getting a little bit of the emotions that they want me to do, and then they would like bam, slap it with some stupid ass decision that you're like, okay, now you threw me off of that feeling that we were having. And for every like one good moment, you have 2 to 3 of those just really weird. Some of these I can't even put into words how you like feel while you're watching it. It's so surreal. Like, you during pretty much the opening sequence, like not literally the opening sequence, but like let's say the scene after, where you're about 10 minutes into the movie and there's a sequence going on where he's being the Flash, and you have some weird choices like really, really bad CG, and they claim that it's because it was stylistic choice, and I'm like, okay, I could see a stylistic choice, but that's some bullshit. It's more like it was a choice because they were only given like $10 fucking to make the the CG for this movie. So they were like, you got $10. You could either make 1 second of it look photorealistic, or you could make a quote unquote stylistic choice and make it look like a PS2 cinematic in-game, or not in-game, a cinematic CG level. So you had this like really unrendered stuff that even some of the stuff in the low-budget CW show looked better than some of the stuff in this movie. And that is saying something. But you had, again, like, oh, I'm about to vibe with this. I'm about to, oh, bad CG. Oh, the scene makes, like, why would you make this scene? Not just, even take the CG out of the equation. You got certain scenes that you're like, somebody had to think of this scene, write it down, pitch it to the people, make it, and then animate it. And you're like, how did it go through all these steps and not a single person say, this is kind of stupid? Like, this doesn't fit the tone that we just had a second ago. It like completely feels different.
Now.
Yeah, like I said, it's enjoyable. You turn off your brain for about 2 hours, and it's about as good as one of those mediocre Transformers movies. Like, not the good ones, the ones that are just like in between, like above the Last Night Transformers movie. like just one of those run of the mill ones. But it's just it's so questionable. And you have that other Ezra Miller, the one that's supposed to be not the main one, and he's just like going like, oh, like sounding like the stupid guy surfer dude from the SpongeBob show, like that guy that pops up.
Yeah.
He literally is going around laughing like that like every 5 freaking minutes. It gets so annoying really fast. So that's what I'm saying. You just have some weird questionable choices that you're just like, why did you just ruin a perfectly good scene by doing this just dumb out of the blue thing. It just, I don't know if it's because it was their attempt of humor or their attempt of like a relief in between more emotional scenes, but it just I don't know, man. And that ending at the very end, it just also was like, why? I just, some of these things just didn't make sense to me. You mentioned the cameos. The cameos are also like, I get nostalgia reasons, but
Mhm.
nostalgia is just because something is old and you remember it from the past doesn't mean it's good. Some things need to stay in the past because they were not good products, and no amount of nostalgia will make you think, oh, hey, yeah, now that's suddenly good. So there's some stuff in this movie that makes me think that. And same with the Keaton, even though he did great, and I was never a huge Keaton Batman fan. Um,
Yeah.
well, not Keaton Batman, but that whole Tim Burton era of Batman, it just wasn't for me. Even growing up, I watched it as a kid, and they just did not click with me for some reason. Just didn't feel like the Batman to me, and but seeing him in this movie and what they do with him, it's a little bit interesting. It makes me like that specific version. But even then, we have stuff like, let's say, No Way Home, where they had that nostalgia factor, like their equivalent to Keaton Batman with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. But unlike The Flash, at least this wasn't done just for the sake of nostalgia to try to get people into the seats. I feel like they should have done a little bit more with The Flash in that aspect, because in Spider-Man, you they serve a purpose. They serve a purpose. It's to have the Tom Holland Spider-Man kind of grow and learn what it is to be Spider-Man through other versions of him that nobody's going to know how he feels the way they do because they are technically him. So they were able to balance a good sense of nostalgia but with a purpose type of deal, whereas I feel the Flash tried to attempted to do something like that, but it just, they never knew exactly what they wanted to do. They just thought, hey, what would bring in people? We need something nostalgic. Let's try to tie it in. Oh, people like the old Tim Burton Batmans. That's 30 years ago, 40 years, or 30 something years ago. So let's just add that. It'll bring people in. And it's just little things like that kind of held back what you could tell somewhere deep in there was that potential for something that could have been actually called one of the best comic book movies of all time.
Actually, you know what the good thing about this is like in August we have Blue Beetle, and so and plus like 5 to 10 years from now we'll be looking at these DC movies and appreciate for what it is. But since this whole backlash of everything that but me and Mr. Oyman talked about this over the weekend, is that a majority of the DC films is going to be called classic in the next 5 to 10 years. That's how I think of it, because they're just they're just great movies to watch it, and so down the line they'll be appreciated more, maybe as of right now. But again, I'm just looking ahead. But I am going to see the Flash this weekend. Um, Again, I'll get my full thoughts on it when we talk about it more on Friday. I mean Monday, as we kind of flesh out the pros and cons of this movie, of course. But yeah. So one more thing I have to say is before we head off the air, because it's pretty late, I want to thank you, Texas Morning, for giving me the opportunity to talk with you. This has been amazing. I've gotten a lot of crap off my chest because I'm frustrated at what everybody's talking about. Because I feel like a lot of people nowadays are two-faced because they just want to have followers or viewers because they just want people, they want to hear, they want to say what people want to
Yeah, they
hear.
just want
I tell the
yeah.
truth, and I feel like we told the truth tonight about certain topics, and so I'm glad that we took this opportunity, especially on a Wednesday night, to kind of flesh that out into more detail.
Yeah, I agree. Cause that's one thing I when starting up this channel I wanted to do is I just wanted to get our opinions out there. I'm not out there to try to piss certain fan bases off or do something like that. I'm more just like I like being honest about stuff. I'm gonna like some stuff. I'm gonna not like some stuff, and I'd like to voice my opinion and have the panel or anyone who shows up. Hopefully, we could get guests on soon. To just give up their 2 cents and just say how they honestly feel about some of this stuff. We didn't talk too much about it, but we'll get to it more on Monday potentially. Is like that Andy Muschietti for Batman Brave and the Bold. Some people are gonna be like, "Oh, that's great." I honestly think he's not the guy for it. You aren't that guy, man. After seeing The Flash, I'm scared for that movie now. But like I said, I do enjoy having you and the panel come in and give your thoughts out and just speak your mind. And if you have to give it to certain fan bases and you have to, excuse me, a little burp, you have to give it to them because there's, like you said, a lot of channels that are out there for the clout, and they'll just say one thing one day and just completely say something completely different another day just to try to appease certain crowds or appease certain people and try to get the most views. So I'm here at the Screen Crusaders. We try to be as straightforward as we possibly can. And man, yeah, we made it to a whole hour and 30-minute mark. I guess it wasn't so much of a mini episode. It was pretty much a full episode. And thanks for stopping by, man. I'm like you said, you thank me, but I'd like to thank you for taking time off your Wednesday. I know it was impromptu and it was kind of last minute type of deal, but I'm glad I was able to at least get one of y'all to come on here and just shoot the shit with me, man. Just talk about the latest and greatest in the world of geek entertainment. And of course, I'd like to thank anyone who came by and stopped to listen, even if it was for just a few minutes. Thank you for taking time off of your Wednesday to join us, the Screen Crusaders. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button if you did enjoy what you heard. And of course, feel free to share us out with anyone that you know is a big geek and likes to keep up with the latest news and might want to just comment on our streams and kind of go back and forth with us. Like I know we have haven't seen him in a while, but Derpy, sometimes he'll come on and he'll give us a couple of impromptu subjects that he'll throw a curveball and then he'll catch the panel member's eye or my eye, and then we'll improvise and go from there, even if it's not on the board. But with that being said, thank everyone again for stopping by, and y'all have a fantastic rest of the weekend, and we'll see y'all on the next episode of the Screen Crusader podcast. Say bye, JT.
Yeah.
You know how much I sacrificed?